Ajanifa ni bado uko na hoto.
نعم تفضل. صدقة جارية, it is not basically only on knowledge. It is any good deed that is continuous even after you die. So for example, you dig a well. Whether Muslims or non-Muslim drink from it, it is what? It is sadaqatun jariyah. You build a hospital where people go and what? They get, services, whether they are Muslims or not. And then you build a school where kids go and learn good manners and etiquette, irrespective of whether they are Muslims or not. Whatever you do to make it beneficial to humanity is sadaqatun jariyah.
Too much.
I hope we get it. Whatever is going to be beneficial to humanity. Because let's understand, this deen is a deen of humanity. وَمَا أَرْسَلْنَاكَ إِلَّا رَحْمَةً لِلْعَالَمِينَ. The Prophet Muhammad was sent as a mercy to what? To al-alam, humanity. So the advent of Islam and then the fragrance of Islam is not only specific to Muslims. It's for everybody. So you find out that during the time of Umar ibn Khattab, one day he met an old blind man in the streets of Medina begging. And Umar ibn Khattab said, begging in Medina whilst I'm alive? And Umar ibn Khattab went to the man and asked him, why are you begging? He said, I'm a Jewish man and I have nobody to take care of me. And Umar ibn Khattab said, there is no goodness in us when we take from them taxes when they are young people and then leave them as old blind beggars on the streets of Medina. So Umar ibn Khattab turns to his secretary who was with him and told him, make sure this man receives monthly allowance till the day he dies from the Bayt al-Mal al-Muslimin. And if there are anybody like him in Medina and across the Muslim empire, make sure they receive pension allowances. So for the first person to initiate pension allowances was Umar ibn Khattab. So old men, women were receiving pension allowances from the Bayt al-Mal, irrespective of whether they were what? They were Muslims or not. Same Umar ibn Khattab in Medina. An old woman came to him and she had a necklace with a cross on it. And she came to said, and she said, Umar ibn Khattab, my granddaughter is of age. And I want to, she's getting married, but I don't have the money for the festivities. And Umar ibn Khattab, the first thing that came to his mind was this old woman in Medina. Why hasn't she accepted Islam? So for him, it was about da'wah first. So he asked her, why haven't you accepted Islam? She said, I'm an old woman. I don't think Allah needs me. And Umar ibn Khattab said, no, it's your kind that the Almighty Allah loves the most. But she said, no, Umar ibn Khattab. And Umar said, no, but I'm sorry. Listen, he said, I'm sorry if I had pressured you into accepting Islam. I was only asking a question. Into accepting Islam. I was only asking a question. And don't think that because you are not a Muslim, the Muslim state is not going to help you. He turned over to Salim and he told him, make sure the old woman receives enough money to help her with the festivities or the feast of her granddaughter's marriage. So if you look at our civilization as Muslims, the help that Islam tells us to help is not limited, well, it's not only limited to Muslims, it's for everybody who needs it. And it's not even limited to human beings, even animals. The Prophet Muhammad said, if a man plants a tree and human beings and animals eat from the fruits of the tree, he is rewarded for the sadaqah for every fruit that is eaten by those animals, whether they are birds or they are goats or sheep, or whether they are Muslims or not. So for sadaqatun jariyah as a Muslim, don't limit your mindset to only what? To only Muslims. No, expand it. Even our zakat, which is compulsory, you give zakat sometimes to non-Muslims. وَالْمُؤَلِّفَةُ قُلُوبُهُمْ. There are some Muslims, some non-Muslims, you know very well that this guy is a non-Muslim, but then he has a great deal of respect for Muslims. He doesn't badmouth Muslims. These are the kind of guys that you give him zakat to what? To strengthen his heart on the deen. Don't forget the hadith where the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ gave a gift of a valley full of goats to a guy who had just accepted Islam. The man rushed to his village and then he said, guys, go to Medina and accept Islam, because Muhammad gives gifts as if he is not afraid of poverty. So our sadaqatun jariyah, our help as Muslims, shouldn't only be limited to what? To Muslims. You have a lot of ways through which you can what? You can help. And let me tell you a fact. This happens in Africa now, in Ghana especially. There are communities who are Muslims, they are villages, they are Muslims. They find it tough. Life is difficult. You know what the Christians do? They go build a hospital for them, dig wells for them, and whole villages are becoming Christians now. When hitherto they were Muslims. Yes, it happens. And sometimes you find some Muslims, some people in Ghana, their first names are Christian names, and then their last names are what? Are Muslim names. They were born in Muslim families, but then non-Muslims took them, nurtured them, educated them, and in the end they end up being what? Being Christians. So, idea of humanitarian work shouldn't be limited to only Muslims, and shouldn't only be limited to things that are directly related with the deen. No, it's not only about building madaris. I nearly said this muadhin is early, but the muadhin is right. I think it's time for us to break our fast, so inshallah. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين والسلام عليكم. Inshallah, tomorrow we'll continue. Let me stop this so that it doesn't record what we're saying.